Hi, my name is Meredith Rogers, and my art history research paper was over Elizabeth Louise Vigée Lebrun, The Portraitist to the Queen. In a male-dominated world, women who often sought out to break this traditional mold were purposely ignored or labeled as outcasts by society, whether that be through the fabrication of vicious rumors or intentionally left out of history. Elizabeth Louise Vigée Lebrun was one of these women, sorry, who constantly desired something more than the role women were so graciously handed to by society. Despite all the odds, she found her rightful place in the history of art as a respected Rococo and Neoclassicism artist, as well as the favorite portraitist to the Queen Mary Antoinette herself. Two women, constantly belittled and deprecated by society, found support in each other's companionship. Their friendship, good God. Hi, my name is Meredith Rogers, and my art history research paper was over Elizabeth Louise Vigée Lebrun, The Portraitist to the Queen. In a male-dominated world, women who sought to break the traditional mold that was so gracious. Hi, my name is Meredith Rogers, and my research paper was over Elizabeth Louise Vigée Lebrun, Portraitist to the Queen. In a male-dominated world, women who sought to break the traditional mold were often purposely ignored or labeled as outcasts by society, whether that be through the fabrication of vicious rumors or intentionally left out of history. Elizabeth Louise Vigée Lebrun was one of those women who constantly desired something more than the role women were so graciously handed to by society. Despite all the odds, she found her rightful place in the history of art as both a respected Rococo and Neoclassicism artist, as well as becoming the favorite portraitist to the Queen Mary Antoinette herself. Two women who shared the unfortunate fate of being constantly belittled and deprecated by society found comfort in each other's companionship. Their friendship is a tale of women supporting women. Today, I'll begin to show you by a snippet of their lives how Elizabeth Louise Vigée Lebrun navigated the world as an 18th century female artist. She was born in the artistic family of Jean and Louis Vigée on April 16, 1755. And like most girls of the aristocracy, by the age of 6, Elizabeth would be enrolled into a convent to learn the basics of female social etiquette and would stay there until the age of 11. According to Elizabeth, this time was very key in her development of her desire to create, um, claiming in her memoir to have drawn on every surface possible, including her friends and classmates. Quote, at 7 or 8, I remember I made a picture by lamplight of a man with a beard, which I have kept to this very day. When my father saw it, he went into transports of joy, exclaiming, you will be a painter, child, if there ever was one. Her father, Louis Vigée, was a small-scale portraitist and became a major backbone to Elizabeth throughout his life. His connections would lead to various lessons and opportunities for Elizabeth, um, made with various well-known artists, even after his unfortunate death in 1767, leaving the young Elizabeth alone, as her mother had always preferred her younger brother over her. At the age of 12, devastated at the loss of her anchor, she was left in a state of depression, unwilling to even pick up a pencil. It was not until a dear friend of her father, a renowned history painter, Gabriel Francois Dowen, stepped in, urging Elizabeth to begin to draw once more. Eventually, she did begin to pick up the pen. Begin to pick up the pencil once more, except this time focusing on studies of nature and landscapes instead of portraiture. Around this time, Elizabeth met another young artist, Rosalie Bouquet. The two of them became fast friends and would attend private lessons by Gabriel Rod together, as his regular lectures were reserved for young men only. Eventually, the two grew apart, with Rosalie being a predominant name in the court. She yearned for a domestic life of marriage, which Elizabeth did not care for that idea or of motherhood. Unfortunately, that belief would later play a hand in various allegations made by Lebrun's enemies. There's the quote. So, the Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture of Paris was the end goal for most artists of the 18th century, and Elizabeth Lebrun was no different. However, at this point, this was a goal that only three female artists had ever achieved in the past. To be elected in the Academy meant the artist was rated and placed with a specific hierarchical scale: history painting, portraiture, genre painting, landscapes, and still lifes. History paintings consist of large-scale canvases depicting scenes of important events throughout history, religious stories, myth, or allegorical scenes, made up of several figures, most often in the nude. To portray these bodies would mean the artist had to have an accurate amount, an appropriate amount of exposure to the male nude, something that attended in class, something that happened in classes that only men were allowed to attend. This created a complete wall over Elizabeth's chances to ascend this hierarchical ladder. Without the ability to attend classes, she and other female artists were left with no access to the male nudes, leaving them unable to create successful or respectable history paintings. This left women artists with the lesser genres, as landscapes and scenes of everyday life were something they had access to. Even for a woman to make it as a portraitist seems like a far stretch. Instead, Elizabeth applied to and was accepted at the Academy of St. Luke in October of 1774, an academy where her father had actually been a member before his passing. In 1778, Elizabeth would paint the first of many portraits of Queen Mary Antoinette. Their bond was almost immediate. Many of the stories shared by Madame Lebrun's own memoir was full of nostalgia and mourning for the late queen, recounting memories of how kind and caring she was to whoever graced her presence. The public's view of the queen, unfortunately, was not as loving, with murmurs of dissent being whispered around every corner. The bond between the queen and the artist was not only sparked due to their professional nature, due to their professional relationship through paintings, but due to the shared understanding of society hating powerful and successful women. Throughout their friendship, Madame Lebrun would paint around 30 portraits of the queen, many of which were used in efforts to tame the public's overall disapproval. The goal was to portray the queen as a motherly figure, in hopes to humanize her to the masses. Unfortunately, one painting did more harm than good to the unfavorable royal. In 1783, Elizabeth would paint Marie Antoinette in chemise, also commonly referred to as Marie Antoinette in Gaul, or Marie Antoinette in muslin. This portrait would be put on display by Elizabeth in 1783 in 1783's Salon, only for it to later be removed due to the public's uproar. The painting depicts a woman, the queen, wearing a simple white dress, which is a simple white chemise, sorry, a muslin garment often used as a slip underneath larger dresses. What had meant to temper the populace's opinion to show the queen in a different light, one that was not all just gowns and parties, had actually only worsened it due to the informal nature of the dress, believing her to be making fun of the lower classes. As stated by Margarita, Vigée Lebrun was attempting to redeem the already widely vilified queen by representing her in universal humanity and her appealing, vulnerable femininity. She did not succeed in helping to starve off the mourning chorus of criticism. By that time, Marie Antoinette's scandalous reputation was beyond repair. Disregarding the public's overall disapproval of the artwork, it is a very technical, sound piece through the skills and technical applications. The painting is a mixture of painterly attributes while portraying a realistic subject matter, something that is a very key characteristic in most Rococo paintings. When looking at the painting closely, it appears that there's only harsh contours in the brightest highlights, with everything else being softly blended, even the shadows of her figure being blended into the background. The light source appears to be to the viewer's left, like it's over our shoulder. With Marie Antoinette's three-quarter profile, it leaves the quarter of her body being cast into the shadows, while the right side and her face are brightly lit. The painting is absolutely full of different textures and materials. The viewer can almost feel the scratchiness of the golden bow that appears to be made with a sort of translucent hole, leaving hints of her white dress underneath. To give the appearance of this see-through yet scratchy material, she appears to have layered various washes to build up the base of this fabric, and then used an unblended and bold highlight to mimic the sort of scratchy and sparkly material catching the light. The white chemise worn by Antoinette appears soft and airy, made up of hundreds of folds of pleats, all that are painted with smooth transitions from light to dark, with no harsh contours or shadows. The darkest darks are actually found in the sleeves, which are now referred to as Marie sleeves, to separate the sort of ruffles from one another. There is minimal use of reflective light, with the blues and purples being cast in the shadow with sort of a medium warm tone used, or a sort of warm tone used in the mids. I'm so sorry. With a sort of warm yellow used in the midtones before using a cool blue as the highlights. To mimic the sheer ruffles along Antoinette's neckline and cuffs, Madame Lebrun continues to use this unbladed highlight technique to allow the hems to catch the light to further separate the fabrics. In her left hand, she holds a small bouquet, while her right hand is lightly outstretched, holding the ribbon to be tied around the bouquet. The bouquet primarily consists of greenery, with one large pink rose well lit in the center, with smaller flowers on the sides, covered by shadows cast by Antoinette's body. The rose almost perfectly matches the color of the rouge that covers her cheeks and nose, which Madame Lebrun mentions being, which her Madame Lebrun mentions her skin being unlike anything she's ever seen in the past, has ever seen before. I'm so sorry, excuse me. Excuse me. Antoinette's pale skin practically glows in comparison to the dark charcoal background. With that fleshy ruse covering her cheeks and nose, her expression is gentle and passive. Wearing a soft smile, nothing but kindness is seen in her eyes. She stares directly out into the eyes of the viewer as if she's watching us just like we watch her. Sitting atop her head of gray curls is a tilted straw hat that slants across her forehead in about at a 45-degree angle, donned with a large pale blue feather and bow. Through the use of minuscule lines, LeBron is able to mimic that vein texture of the feathers, making it light and fluffy. The hat is a golden yellow, which complements the pale stone blue almost perfectly, and creating a pleasant pop of color on an otherwise soft and muted color palette. The stone blue color of the bow and feathers matches almost perfectly with the dark blue of Antoinette's eyes, further proving Madame Lebrun's mastery as a colorist. In the bottom right corner, hiding in the shadows, we see the edge of a intricately carved wooden desk that holds an overflowing bowl of flowers used to make the bouquet in Antoinette's hand. Most of the pot's contents are lost in the background, at victim of falling into the shadow cast by Antoinette's body. But the viewer can still make out a handful of flowers, mostly consisting of various colors of roses, including yellow, pink, and red. There is one large pink rose left along the table, most likely left aside by Antoinette picking the pieces for her bouquet. One of my personal favorite elements of Elizabeth Lebrun's work is the femininity behind it all. She disliked painting men as they often made her uncomfortable with the unwanted flirting and advances as they sat for her, so she sought to represent the underlying emotions and realities being women instead. Painting Antoinette holding a small bouquet of flowers is something so childlike that we can all relate to, as every little girl has had the experience of running around picking weeds and flowers to create small bouquets just like her, and it forces the viewer to connect over that mutual understanding of girlhood. Rococo was known as a feminine style due to its colorful and painterly nature, just like we see in this scene. Madame Lebrun believed in unposed portraits, a characteristic directly affiliated with Rococo that would later be lost in the later neoclassicism style. Quote, excuse me, Elizabeth sought to achieve an effect of naturalness and spontaneity by seizing her subject in an unguarded yet highly revealing moment of absorption. This allowed for a deeper connection to be made between the viewer and the artwork. Instead of looking at a fabricated scene, the viewer is forced to stare directly into the eyes of someone real. Her desire to capture emotion like this could be traced back to her early art as a child, where she would do quick sketches of the likeness of those who moved around her unposed. On May 31st, 1783, Elizabeth Louise Vigée Lebrun was finally able to land the dream of becoming a member of the Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture in Paris. Although Elizabeth's expertise was in portraiture, she longed to be recognized as a history painter due to the hierarchy of the Academy. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. She longed to be recognized as a history painter due to the hierarchy of the Academy. As a reception piece, I'm so sorry. As a reception piece, um, As a reception piece, Vigie Lebrun submitted Peace Bringing Back Abundance, as you can see in the right corner, in order to demonstrate to the council that she was fully capable of executing this kind of allegorical painting. According to male members at the time, many of Elizabeth's difficulties she faced with admittance have nothing to do with her being a woman, as the Academy had already admitted women in the past. The issues came from her being married to an art dealer, as well as believing her ambitions of becoming a history painter were far too high. Although women have been admitted in the past, no woman had actually ever been granted the title of a history painter, so the likelihood of male members wanting it to keep it that way were unfortunately high. Regardless of her proven abilities to create such a painting, Elizabeth was unfortunately admitted under the portrait genre. On the same day as her acceptance, another woman artist was also celebrating her own acceptance into the Academy, Adelaide Labille-Guiard. The two men were immediately pitted against each other by society, although there were actually no hard feelings between one another. The rivalry was created not only due to the fact they were admitted on the same day, but due to the claim that Labille-Guiard rightfully earned her admittance, while Madame Lebrun was only admitted to the Academy due to interference from the Queen. Not only that, but the differences in their styles also sparked debate. While Lebrun having more of a stereotypical feminine style, more associated with Rococo, whereas Labille-Guiard paints with a masculine edge closer to neoclassicism. As Lebrun's fame grew, so did the rumors. Allegations began to spread of her sleeping with her sitters, both male and female, as were the tales of her lying over the claim to her work, raging that her paintings were actually painted by someone else, more specifically her male mentors. Due to their close friendship and having enemies from both ends, rumors began to spread about Antoinette and Lebrun's relationship, including the belief that they were lovers. One of the many insults used to often further damage Queen Marie Antoinette's reputation was the question of her sexuality. When noticing the Queen had gained a female friend, one that did not believe in marriage or motherhood, it was only time before society would attempt to drag the successful artist down as well. As stated in Vigie Lebrun's own memoir, although I am sure I was the most harmless creature who ever drew a breath, I had enemies. According to Elizabeth, she believed that many of these enemies were actually spawned due to jealousy over the fact that she could charge more for her paintings than others as hers were in fashion due to Marie Antoinette. Soon would begin the start of the French Revolution, forcing Lebrun to flee from her home in exile due to her association with the Queen and the aristocracy, leaving behind everything but her daughter. Elizabeth Louise Vigie Lebrun is truly one of the most decorated artists of this 18th century, yet she is continuously ignored by artists today as well as artists back then. Exiled from France from over a decade at the peak of her career, she was forced to start over and build back her reputation with nothing but 20 francs to her name. Her artwork is a treasure to women who take pride in their femininity, who do not wish to hide from it. While she was originally against the idea of motherhood until bearing her own child, her Julie, she then realized how much the maternal role plays a part in women's lives, and began centering her work around that misunderstood aspect of a woman's life. As said by Deborah Kennedy, Elizabeth Louise Vigie Lebrun is an artist quote, captures not only beauty, but also the depths of women's lives in their portraits, end quote. Vigie Lebrun may have been born in a world made for men, but she was also born to be a painter, and by all means, she became one. Thank you.